Okay, so day 2 on this very confusing to read pasuk, but we'll get stuff. Okay, so 24:9 zimas ivelas chatas v'toavas la'adam leitz. Okay, so we have ambiguities at every turn, right? Zima can either mean plotting or licentiousness. Ivelas is foolishness. So plain shot is zima of ivelas, but we said it could also mean zima of ivelas person. Okay, chatas is a sin or a mistake. Yeah, okay. V'toavas la'adam leit, and a scoffer is an abomination to people, or it, meaning the zimas ivelas, is an abomination to a person who is a scoffer. Okay, and maybe more permutations as well. So our questions were: what is zima? Does it mean planning or licentiousness? That we said is going to have to be like the big crossroads here. 2, what is the subject and what are the predicates in the first and second clause? So in other words, is it the subject? Well, the first clause seems to be the zima is a chatas, but then in the second one, is the zima still the subject, or is the adam leitz the subject, or some other thing? What is the leitz doing here? This does not sound like it's really talking about the leitz. 5, if zima is a term of condemnation like tueva, why use such a harsh term for foolishness? What is ivelas in this context? What is a tueva in this context, and tum? And then how does adam fit in? And then we kind of gave up on listing the questions after that. Yeah, okay. So let's review what we did yesterday. I'll say the idea that I remember, and then you guys can help fill me in on the other stuff. So the idea that I remember was that, actually, it's going to help if we translate it. Okay, so yesterday's idea. Okay, so we translated it like this: foolish thinking or foolish planning will be regarded by people as I'm not going to bother with these brackets, will be regarded by people as a mistake and will be regarded, well, actually, I decided to change this, will be treated as an abomination. No, I can do even better than that. And will make a person be treated like an abomination by a leitz, something like that. Okay, in other words, he's going to be, so we said the idea is that in general, Mishlei warns you against foolish decision-making based on the consequences of the action itself. Okay, but in this case, Mishlei is giving you another strategy, which is that think about how you're going to be viewed by people when it is revealed that you engage in this foolish thinking. So you're going to be regarded by people as making a mistake, and that's bad enough. But then if the leitz gets a hold of it, he's going to totally make you an abomination in the eyes of people. All right. So this is like a good deterrent because it pertains to the ego, which people sometimes care about more than the actual consequences, or they give greater, they take it as a much more real risk than the actual consequences. And it's saying that you can use this to stop yourself if you feel an impulse to do a foolish act. Okay, that was the idea I remember. All right, what other ideas were there? If anyone remembers.
One, but I didn't have.
Yeah, you had the good first half, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was just saying this is advice on how to best enjoy physical pleasures. Wasn't physical pleasures, but doing something foolish. Yeah, short-term pleasures.
Yeah,
which is to not plan it out. Just like whenever they pop up, just like do them, enjoy them. And if you were to start trying to plan them out or things like that,
right,
then either a few different problems you run into. One that you're going to like have some expectation, it's not going to meet the expectation. So there's going to be some down, you're going to miss everything that was possible, and so or that you thought was possible.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some upset and down over there. Also, then if you plan these things out, then you're going to have more fixation on more of a lock on being this way, and that's also going to overall lead to worse things than it happened.
Yeah. So today I disagree with what you're saying. Okay. I think that even though the psychological points you're making are true, I don't think Shlomo would advocate making a foolish. First of all, I don't think he would advocate ivelas in general, and if he is going to advocate ivelas, I think he'd say you'd be better off thinking about it instead of not thinking about it, because you're going to avoid a lot of the consequences that the Ivel gets by just acting impulsively. And even if it's going to interfere with your pleasure, leaping across the street without looking both ways is really fun, but you also get hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the case with like, a lot of these things, Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe you're translating as short-term pleasure,
Right.
Not in a foolish way. And I think
Right, that's good.
Distinctly negative.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to express the objection. Yeah. In other words, if you were just talking about short-term pleasures that are not foolish, then I would accept your idea. But I don't think that Shlomo refers to short-term pleasures that are not foolish as foolishness. Yeah. Okay. So I had an approach. Anyone else have any? I think Ariel had something, but I can't remember what it is right now. Okay. So I had an approach, but I want to save it for. Actually, let's do it now. Okay. The Ralbag, which I forgot to include in your packet, so I'll just look at it on the Torah. Okay. So Ralbag, it's in your packet. Yeah. Okay. Ralbag gives two interpretations, and the first one's the one that was like the way I was reading it. Zimas Ivelis, he says, he's connecting this to the previous one. In fact, let's do this. Let's reread the previous pasuk, which I copied and pasted here. Previous pasuk was Machshavah Lab, lo ba'al Zimas Yikra'u. One who plans to do bad, a master of plot, he will be called by people. Okay, let's actually read the Ralbag on that, because I don't think we did the Ralbag on that one. Ralbag says, he doesn't say. Wait, unless there's just no Dibra Moscow. Yeah, it looks like it. Oh, okay, so he learns it connected to the previous two. Ramos le'vil chachmos, bashar lo yiftach biho. Let's see what he says. Hine hachachmos, Ramos le'vil. Chachmos are high up to an avil. Lo yishar ba'atzmo shiuchal hasid. He does not think about himself that he can attain them. Therefore, he will not open his mouth when he's in the gate with a chachamim. Okay. So in other words, he's self-conscious about the fact that he views chacham as out of his reach, and then therefore he's not going to enter into talking with a chachamim, which we said is kind of a level. But I guess if you're covering up if you're trying to deny your own inability to get chachma and just trying to like mask it, then that could be bad. Afterwards, it explains the cause of this. Amar machashiv laharea hine ha'ish hamachashiv libo laharea lo hamachshavos ulachabrim elav. Wait. Laharea. Hine ha'ish hamachashiv libo laharea lo hamachshavos. See, that was the mistake I made when I read it, right? Let's try and combine Laharela. Hamachshavos ulachabram elav yishtada b'zeh ha'ofen shehi bal hamachshavos hanoflos b'zeh bichlalam. Eh? I don't know what he's saying. Let's see if we got the fun from the punchline. Is that also a typo? Is there supposed to be an aleph there? Does yours have an aleph? In Yikanu?
I don't think Yikanu. But my next one is V'yishtadol b'zeh hofen she'yeh bal hamachshavos hanoflos b'zeh hadarish b'chlalam. Do you not have that sentence?
And then right after that.
Oh, okay. Chachmos yikra'u.
Yikra'u. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Yeah. You want to understand it also?
It has it bold, like
it's a Dibra Moscow.
Yeah. Like low bar Mizimos yikra'u.
What page is it?
Tough kuf mem chet.
Okay. Ubir Afraze Hasiba Vamar Hine Haisha Machashav Belibu Laharelo Hamachshavos Laharelo Hamachshavos Ulchabrim Elav. What's the 29 say? Laharea Lashon Chaverus. Oh, Laharea, to befriend. Oh, okay. So he's translating it as, wow, that's a strange thing. He's translating it as Machashiv Laharea, one who thinks to befriend, like who plans to befriend. Okay, what does this mean then? Hine ha'isha machashiv belibo laharea lo hamachshavos l'chabre milav. So the guy wants to befriend machshavos, okay, and to join them to him, to make friends with them. And he wants to be a bal machshavos in this subject in general. The chachmos will call out to him to acquire them. So this is a good thing then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. This is how you're going to get the ideas. Like Aristotle mentions in one of his books on logic, probably. I don't know what the Sefer HaNitzuach is. It might be, I don't know. And in metaphysics. That's going to allow him to separate between the correct thoughts and the incorrect thoughts. And he'll arrive at knowledge without any doubt. Okay, now he gets to our pasuk. But a foolish man, okay, so he's learning as ish iveles. Who rachov me'od mizeh. He's very distant from this. Ki hazima v'hamachshava hi leish iveles chatas v'chesron, because thinking and planning to an ish iveles is a chatas and a deficiency. So that's what I was trying to say yesterday, that you read it as that planning is a sin to a foolish man, meaning he regards it as a sin. Because he does his actions without any thought or foresight or thought, like we explained earlier. So too, so he's learning that the second clause is going on the subject of the first clause. Zima and Machshavah are an abominable and disgusting thing to an Adam late. His only intention is about words of mockery. Bezulas yishuv histaplos, without thought. Right, let's stop there because that's the end of his first interpretation. Yeah.
The late part, wouldn't he like people to? I was thinking this yesterday, but doesn't he like people to like say things that he can scoff at?
Right, but I think it's saying that I don't know the idea yet, but I think the way he's reading it is he doesn't like planning and plotting. He's himself, yeah. Right. I mean, he's only focused on the mockery.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, right. So the idea here is saying is just to get the gist of it before we define it, that let's just translate it according to the Ralbag. Okay, Ralbag is planning is a sin to the foolish man and an abomination to the scoffing man. Okay, so very simple to read that way, okay? Yeah, so what's the idea here? So I started to say yesterday that like, it's not just that the fool, the Pesi just doesn't plan because he just is seduced by his immediate yetzer, or he doesn't know how to plan. But if you try to show the Pesi a plan, then he'll, and show him how to get him his desire, he'll like that. But the Avil despises Chachma and Musar. He hates planning. So to him, planning is a sin. Okay. So, and then to the lates, then planning is a toeva. So the question is, what is that idea? Like, why is he framing it as a sin? And also, I understand the first half much better than the second half, right? It sounds like the lates really just doesn't need to plan because mocking, stems from the gut. Like, that's why, I've heard people say that Trump is very good at coming up with like derogatory nicknames for his enemies. I don't think he's good at coming up with it. I think he has just a really good intuition for it. It's not like he's like working out with a strategic marketing team and like running like tests and like which one's going to be the best. He's just really good at bullying, So like it comes naturally. So that's what I like to. So is it really a to'eva to engage in planning for the lates? Yeah.
I haven't thought about that, but I don't understand the first part.
Okay.
So,
let's join forces.
Yeah. So I think the lates, the lates is like worldview is like mockery.
Yeah.
And planning requires taking something seriously, which is I think counter to that. Like. Oh,
interesting.
Yeah. Like.
Okay.
Because he's mocking people who are trying to do things that they're taking seriously.
Yeah.
He can't be planning something without it.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So he's what he's done. So it reminds me of the Rabbeinu Yona on the lates, the one Rabbeinu on the lates. The Rabbeinu Yona on. I just want to read it. Let me remember what you're going to say because I'm not today. Let me look at Rabbeinu Yona on the lates. Ralbag, Yona, lates. Let's see if Bing's coming to me today. Nope. Oh, yeah. Ralbag, Yona, lates complete. Waiting. I think this is on the, what is it, 2117, 2124, whatever the one where he defines the lates. 1724. I'm not as good at remembering precise citations as David. Hold on. Yeah, Zaydia here, here we go. Nope. Yeah, there we go. Was it 2124? Okay. I don't know if that was one of the things I said. He says, when he's talking about the lates and midos, he says that, so this is a Zayd Yahir Late Shemo, a malicious, arrogant person, late is his name, and he acts with the wrath of malice. So he says, Gam begodol, I'm just going to pull out this one line, Gam begodol gavaso, yifgum v'yachis hamalos. So due to his great gaiva, he will blemish and diminish virtues, meaning he'll make fun of midos. And he will not see in himself any one of these deficiencies. He will be, if he were to pay attention to his own faults, he would be too ashamed to mock others. So that thing about how he, in mocking other people, he has to mock those midos, both as a way to deny them in himself, and also he just ends up stigmatizing them because he's making fun of them all the time. So he won't be able, so even if he did like develop a good midah, he won't be able to tolerate that in himself because he's going to associate it as something like mock-worthy. So Isaac's saying the same thing about like the way that he like planning and thinking, taking things seriously is something that like he has to mock. Yeah.
I would just say one more thing that even if he might want to in a particular instance, he's going to be, he might be nervous that if he does take it seriously, he's going to open himself up to the same mockery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. It's definitely a good thought. Yeah. And either rightly so or wrongly so. In other words, it's possible that because he's always mocking other people, then, and in his own social group, he's going to be hanging around with late team. It's a Machshavah Late team after all. That's why they call it that, So if he does take things seriously, then people are going to mock him, or he just projects his own stuff onto other people. And, and he's a very insecure person anyway, so his own insecurities are going to lead him to believe that. Yeah. Okay. That's a good thing. Now, what don't you understand about the first half?
I don't understand why a foolish person would specifically despise planning.
So because the fool, so really it's the foolish person despising Chachma and Musar, which is Yiras Hashem, right? So the Evil does not want to be subordinate to a reality that operates by Chachma, because that, either because of his ego or because it interferes with his taivas. That's the big question, right? Is that what's the underlying force? Is it that is desire for immediate pleasure the underlying force, and then that is what is the cause of such a big ego, or is the self and the animalistic self being the biggest thing the main force, and then that causes him to seek immediate pleasure? But either way, the notion of Yiras, of living, of subordinating himself to Chachma is almost an existential threat. He cannot tolerate the notion that I need to subordinate myself to something in order to to get what I want. So that's why he hates planning. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure this is what you're saying just because I haven't heard it explicitly. That when someone is doing something wrong and like they know they're doing something wrong, like the worst thing to see is that thing being like someone who's doing that right thing that you're not supposed to be doing. And it sounds like a lot of like here, like when someone knows they should be planning because they're just doing something after dumb thing, then seeing someone plan is like the worst thing to see.
I actually wasn't saying that, but that's actually that's another cause of him despising it.
Especially we're gonna call like Tefilah Podcast, at least for the second half.
Yeah.
This is like a really like that's like such a bad thing. When okay, planning's a good idea. Like why?
Right. Maybe look, what prevents this guy from saying, look, I'm just not into planning. But he hates it. Yeah. That wasn't what I was saying, but that's a good point. What I was saying is what I was saying for the Avil is that the notion that plans even exist as something that like might be demanded of him is a threat to his very way of operating.
Yeah.
And then for the lates, it's like what Isaac was saying is that it's stigmatized. He's stigmatized it too much to be able to like align himself with it in any sense. Yeah. Okay. So what's the point of the idea according to this approach of the Ralbag? Okay. I think here's the point. Okay. Maybe that I think that there probably are certain Evilim and Latim who don't realize that they've shut themselves off to planning and to planning. In other words, they might think that if I ever do need to make a plan, then I'm going to be able to do it, and they don't realize that they can't. In other words, take an example of like a very a very ambitious, and this is a kind of an odd combination. Let's say like an ambitious late. Okay, which is weird because most Latim are like Yoshua Kronos. But let's say like picture a bullying driven CEO type who is like ruthlessly competitive, like mocking everyone else, right? So he might think to himself, okay, look, I've got my business smarts and I've got my and then he recognizes that he like makes fun of people and like speaks Lashon Hara. He might not realize that by doing that, he's stigmatizing certain types of thinking and planning that will close off opportunities to him. And similarly with the Evil, the Evil will see people who did engage in long-term planning and get wealth and pleasure. And even if he wanted to do that, he's not going to be able to do that because of his addiction to to pleasure seeking. But he thinks he's going to be able to. So this is showing like another consequence to being an Evil and a late. Who's the audience? I think the audience is the guy who's on his way to becoming one of these things. It's yet another disincentive. Another thing to say, like, watch where this path leads. Like, you think that just engaging in like, the occasional late times with friends is like a innocent thing, but you're actually not only going to get all the consequences of late team from the rest of Mishlei. Here's another one: you're going to turn yourself off to thinking. Yeah.
Why is planning specifically a sin to foolish men, not just like anathema?
So I'm saying it's a sin because it is a violation of like how the world should be according to him. It's not just something I don't like to do. Like he doesn't like, taking out the garbage. I mean, but like he wouldn't say that that's a sin. It's just a short-term displeasure, a short-term pain. This is like a fundamental, like it's wrong. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that planning is something that like is necessary. Yeah.
I have an example.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if this example is going to pan out.
Okay.
But I think some people with regards to like career planning, I think like some people will like think through, like think about like, oh, what's gonna like maybe like make you more money, be a better career. And I think other people like it's not just that they don't do it, it's that they're like, oh, you can't, it's impossible to plan for a career, and like to the extent of like making fun of people who are trying to plan for it.
Yeah.
I think maybe because of this same thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. Yeah. Okay, so Ralbag had a second interpretation. Let's see what he says there. And I'm going to go ahead and use the, the Torah Chaim version, but I'll put this one on the screen in case it's right. Okay. O Yurtze, or no, is that? Yeah, I just don't know where I'm reading. I just remembered that was the next line.
That's the fourth line.
Fourth line, thank you. O Yurtze Bezeh, or this means to say, Ki zimas ish ivelas hi chatas v'chesron, or it's saying that the planning of the foolish man is a sin and a deficiency. Not that he views it as a sin or a deficiency. Ki hu lo yashlim hamachshavos, because he does not complete his plans. He doesn't carry out his plans. Aval yaseh lefi hamachshavah ola al libo rishona. He just acts on the first thought that occurs to him. Yeah.
He doesn't complete his planning, right?
He doesn't complete. So, correct. He doesn't complete his planning. Yeah. V'to'avas hazimos timate la'adam lates, and the abomination of plans you will find for a person who is a late. Kihu leroa inyano, he, due to his bad character, lo yikach min hamachshavos ki'im mashu yoser mituav yoser meruchach. He will only take from his plans that which is, or his thoughts, that which is the most abominable and the most reprehensible. Kihu nirtzeh low, because that's what he likes. Okay, so what is he saying here? So he's saying, hold on, I'm just going to type this out so we can visualize it. So this is Ralbag 1, and then Ralbag 2. is the plans of a foolish man are sin, and the plans of a scoffing man are abomination. Okay. That would actually be a good one word. Foolish man. Foolish man. What do you say?
Yesterday too.
Oh, did it? That's funny.
Person you made the same comment.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I'm just gonna add in his explanation, because he doesn't complete them, but just acts on his first thought, and then plans of a scoffing man or abomination, because he only selects the most abominable elements of his thoughts. Yeah, so what's the idea here? Yeah, it is interesting, by the way, just to flesh out the second part. I mean, the type of thought that he did, I mean, I said the example of Trump of like, like doing it off of instinct, but there are definitely people who put a lot of thought into character assassination, right? Whether in, like high school girls, or in the media when people are trying to have a smear campaign. So the interesting thing is they do plan, but the planning is not based on the weighing of the benefits and detriments of each option. It's just what is going to be the most vicious thing, what is going to be the most cause the most harm, and they just select that aspect of it. So that's they're taking the most abominable parts of their plans. There's this is funny because there are, I think everyone has aggressive thoughts, from time to time, and I think that this morning, I just made an episode of the Stoic Jew podcast. I've been up since 2:15 because a guy was blaring music outside of my apartment at 2:15 until 3:15. And I had a lot of aggressive thoughts, but the difference between me and the lates is that I can recognize that there are all these thoughts, and these thoughts are thoughts that are not even getting anywhere close to action or speech or whatever. And I label them as bad. And I recognize that they're coming from an immature place, but the late, it's just that's the only thing he sees. He has blinders to any other option other than what's going to be the juiciest way to take this guy down. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it because he's looking for the thing that's the most vicious, or the thing that's the most emotionally satisfying, which for him is going to be the vicious thought?
I'd say the most vicious, based on that definition of Zaid Yahir. I think the Zadon in him, the malice of wanting to put people down, is what that's the type of thought he's seeking.
Yeah. And
it's not even it's funny, Rabbeinu Yona doesn't characterize the lates as engaging in pleasure seeking, even though it is pleasurable to him. He characterizes it as aggression, and it's an ego thing. So there is an ego pleasure, but it's really the put down that's the main thing.
Okay, yeah. And so basically the late is thinking about what's going to have the most lateness.
Yeah, he's looking for the kiyum halitanos. Yeah, right. Yeah. Mitzvah minimum car. Yeah. Yeah. Ezra?
I was going to go back to the fool.
Yeah, sure.
So similar to the example with the blaring music.
Yeah.
Say. So what would the difference be for the so the scoffer, you said the lazy is gonna have a bunch of ideas and they'll block out the plans that actually are good.
Yeah.
Because those are abominable.
Right.
Take the bad plans.
Yeah.
Screaming outside the window.
Yeah, right.
Turn it off.
Yeah. I also see people do that outside of my window. Yeah.
And those people are, but is there a way to know if that person's a fool or a late? Because
from the outside, you mean?
The veil is gonna just the first thing that comes to mind.
That's true. Right. That's actually a good point. Is that there can definitely be overlap, and I don't think you can diagnose them necessarily on the basis of one instance, because especially when it comes to retaliation, then they're going to look very similar. Although I guess the fool will be more likely to retaliate in action, whereas the lates will be more likely to do it in speech, even though the Rabbeinu notices will also act if you push him far enough. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the devil is very impulsive, right? He's not going to sit there and be
Right.
turning his thoughts.
Right.
Lates could be though.
Yeah,
Just take
right,
the worst.
right. Yeah, the latest is going to take his time if it's going to mean the best way to get the guy in terms of his mockery. Yeah,
But- sorry, but that's only in the second definition. In the first definition, he's not even gonna plan.
in the first definition of
Ralbag.
robot, correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Right? Is he saying that there are different? See, in a way, you can say that it's just describing the phenomenon in the same way. In other words, he's not really planning. Things are going through his mind, and he's just putting on a filter to get the abominable things. So in the first read, Ralbag is saying that the pasuk is talking about the activity of full planning. So another like this. Both the Avil and the Lates, neither of them engage in full planning. The Avil is quantitatively lacking in the sense that he doesn't think it all the way through, and the Lates has a quality filter. He only chooses the worst quality stuff, but he'll think that through all the way. So both of them can be characterized as having incomplete plans,
So the Trump antagonisms that you described earlier, is that late Sunnis or is that Evelis?
I'd say that's a good question with Trump. I mean, it seems like it's Leitzano, just from the overall profile, right? I mean,
if he's not thinking it through, then
right. But see, that's the thing also. The Lates, what I'm saying is that the Lates does not necessarily need to think it through. The Lates is going to do what is going to be the best strike, and for some people, or in some cases, that means relying on their late instincts that are finally honed. For other cases, it's going to be researching, again, let's say the TMZ, article gossip columnists, they will have a strong instinct, but they will hone and refine what headline is going to cause the most damage, and it could be that the guy flips back and forth, or it could be these are two different profiles of the Lates. David. No, David.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I also think for the plans of foolish men being sin, I don't know if you use the word content or not, which especially if I would say if you're called missing the mark.
Yeah.
A person like this doesn't know what a good plan looks like. So just even how things will pan out, what to select within that, I think what we're saying. And he just doesn't know the whole process because he's never been involved.
Right.
Even when he tries.
That's a good point. That's good. That's a good compliment from the second half to the first to the point of the puzzle that we said for the first half, first idea, not first half. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I just want to add on.
Sure.
I think because you'll see, I think the way that you'll see this is, and if you'll making a decision that let's say a boss is saying oh, I'm gonna take away the water cooler because people stand around the water cooler and talk, and if I take it away, then you're not gonna be wasting time talking, and then there was a thought
that's a great example of a foolish plan.
There was a thought that kind of made sense where this is tied to people wasting time, and I don't want people to be wasting time,
right?
But then because they didn't think it through, it just
yeah, that's good. Remind me right after this to show a video. Not related to this pasuk, but remind me of something that you said.
And just in terms of the leads, I think the leads will think through and polish off a lead sonus plan. I think they would they'll you're saying, they have the quality filter, but they'll select the worst one. But I think they don't have the same blocker that the Avil has, where they can't think it through. Right. They just are going to think through the plans to make it the perfect vicious strike.
Right, but the thing is also again, thinking it through. The inability to think it through for the Avil comes from the unwillingness to have the patience to go through it. And the Lates will, if he's looking for that kind of stuff, but he's going to have complete blinders on certain types of things. And he's going to also give things an inordinate amount of weight, so it still is not thorough in that sense, but he does have the patience. Yeah, David.
Two things. One, I really haven't spoken all about. I think a lot of times planning involves asking other people for advice on things like that. It hasn't come up at all. I don't think
that's true. That is true. Yeah. And I feel like there are other pasukim about the Lates and advice. I have to look back at the Lates list. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So that was one. And there's a second thing. a practical like takeaway from this, which is not even I don't think what the pasuk is saying by any means, but just for myself. I'm thinking of then like at times just practicing like the planning muscle.
Yeah.
Even say what happens to myself. Like
Yeah.
say if I wind up like taking like a quick first thought, I'm like, okay, maybe like I'm not whoever I think I am, and then I can even like use that as maybe good data or
Right.
things like that.
That's a good.
My ability to plan, and which is something that I think is valuable.
Yeah, that is definitely a good way to relate to planning, is that it's a muscle that you have to practice. And in fact, practicing it in areas that are not emotionally charged will make you better capable of doing it when there is an emotionally charged area, because you'll have accustomed yourself to like engaging in planning, which is also why like this is a good Mishlei motive for chesed. Like we've talked before about how Mishlei rarely talks about chesed because that's really more in the realm of Tehillim. But helping your friends plan gives you Mishlei benefits because it helps you practice the planning from a more objective perspective. And you happen to be helping a friend, which is also good for Mishlei benefits because then they will be indebted to you and like they'll want to help you also. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
Another benefit I can see from this is that if you have a moment within yourself when you're skipping planning, it's like, okay, whatever, I'll do whatever happens,
Yeah.
You can self-diagnose it as an ugly thing.
Yes, right. And that the more you strengthen that, then the more you're going to be prone to dismissing planning when it's really important. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. I just want to make an observation about the approach that we had yesterday's idea versus the Ralbag's ideas. It's amazing to me how we were approaching it yesterday in a way where we didn't really need to go into the character of a late. The subject of the pasuk according to yesterday was not the lates at all. Lates was just like a circumstance we mentioned, and it was really directed at not even the inner psychodynamics of the avil. It was just, if you know you're going to be making a short-term, giving into a short-term impulse, this is the strategy to avoid it. And that was the main focus. Today's idea is really giving me insight into the lates and the avil in a different way. And it's just amazing how, like, depending on what this is an illustration of why Rabbi Moskowitz's question of what's the subject of the pasuk is very important, because you see that given the different subjects, we end up like with a completely different, like, trove of like Bina, yeah. Okay,
So who are we saying the audience of this is?
I think the audience of this is someone who is on their way to becoming a lates or an avil, or like Yaakov was saying, someone who the impulse to dismiss planning arises either because I don't want to finish the planning or because I just want to focus on the juicy, aggressive stuff, and it's saying don't give into that because this is the road where it leads to, and this is the consequence. Okay, let's look at the Metzudas David, who is in the packet. I was very intrigued by his reading. So he says, Zimas, Machshavah Ivelis Varesha. So the planning of foolishness and wickedness, Nechsheves Lachatas, is considered to be a sin, im kilo asamaisa, even though he doesn't do an action. Okay, and then similarly, V'toavas v'gomer rotzalomer halitanus mitaeves es adam be'enei kol. Litanus will make a person abominable in the eyes of everyone. Im ki ein ba ki im akimas of, even though the only thing in it is the perversion of the lips. So according to him, what's the havamina of the pasuk? What do you say, David?
It's only planning.
It's only planning. It's only talking, right? Kamash no. That there are, the second one is clear. He's saying you will be considered a abominable in the eyes of all people, right? Which is a consequence. The first half, he's not so clear, like what the consequence is. It will be considered a sin. Is this like what we said about the previous pasuk, which we did 2 weeks ago, about if you are caught doing a plan for evil, then you'll be branded as a schemer, which, by the way, Ezra, I meant to mention this earlier. Ezra mentioned at the Purim Chagiga that a really good example of this is Haman, who was just planning to kill the Jews and hang Mordecai, but then his plan came out, and then he got branded as a traitorous planner to the king, and then he actually got like executed for it.
I was talking about Big Son of Seresh.
Oh, Big Son of Seresh. Oh, wow, I totally misheard you, but it works for Haman also, right? He did act on it more than Big Son of Seresh.
Big Son of Seresh, just like their word was heard.
That's true. Yeah. I must have missed that because it was very loud in that. Yeah. Right. So it could be that that's what it means, that it will be considered in the eyes of everyone. a chatas, but then I don't know why he wouldn't say that, because he says it in the second part. So I don't know. And if he's talking about to God, then that introduces a wrinkle into this, right? I mean, yeah, it could be considered a chet to God, but then it's hard to see the unity in the idea. But the point of the pasuk according to him is saying it's talking against the person who says this is just thinking or this is just talking, right? And dibur lav. Yeah, what's the phrase? Yeah, is that the phrase I'm thinking of? I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not trusting my memory today. But yeah, dibur does not feel like a ma'aseh, right? And therefore, and it's not reckoned that way in halacha. Yeah. So what's the point? I mean, there's a very generic Mishlei point here, which is that people don't think that they are shaped by their thought, their planning, and their speech, and yet they are. Because you feel like it's just happening internally, and then speech just feels like you're expressing your thoughts. But you are shaped by that as much, if not more, than by your actions. I mean, so if this thought enters into your mind, then that's what this pasuk is speaking against. I don't know what the idea is yet. Yeah.
It might be sort of a tangent, but isn't blaspheming an action that's also words?
So Rebbe has a shiur on that in the Bnei Noach section. Okay. That you see from the fact that you can get skila for blasphemy, that it is not essentially an act of speech. And he has a good svar on it, but it's been so long. He probably gives it elsewhere, but it's in the Bnei Noach shiurim when he talks about the Isra of blasphemy.
But there's a physical ma'aseh.
You are chayav skila for it, right? Even though it's seemingly is just in speech. So I forgot how he defines it though. Yeah.
Not direct to the actual lashon, it's not that, but I think one thing, insofar as if someone has a lot of these different thoughts going and they never actually act on them, they could in a way be like repressed thoughts. But then if there ever does come, even if they haven't acted upon these thoughts themselves, but there's like some like general pleasure they were looking for, they like shut themselves off from it or whatever it would be. If the opportunity ever does come up, I think it's going to be much quicker to jump onto that, and they couldn't wind up doing.
That's true.
Wind up in ma'aseh, or at the
right.
basic, they'll have more of a lot.
Right. So that's actually a good point, which the pasuk is not addressing, but there are other pasukim that address. Is you do need to know how to deal with these thoughts in a way that is healthy and with minimal consequences, right? Like there are ways. Let's say you have this aggression that you're tempted to to act upon through your speech of litzanos. There are ways to deal with the aggression, or if you have this impulse to act on your, plan, your ivelis, like there are strategies, to deal with that. So that is a good FYI. Yeah.
What are Machshavah Ivelis?
What are Machshavah Ivelis?
Yeah.
In this context, it's unclear because he's adding the word resha, right? So I don't know if this reflects like a different idea of an avil that what do you call it, that the Metzudas David has, or if he's getting it from Zima. It's possible that, like when we say like Edim Zomamin, that Zamam does imply a certain plot against another person, and that's why he's getting the resha. So I'm not exactly sure what he means by it. Yeah, I don't know if we have enough data. Okay, all right. So those are really good ideas. So just to summarize here, we have Ralbag idea 1, which was that the more you indulge in ivelis and litzanus, the more you are going to be, you're going to stigmatize planning in your own mind, and then that's going to cut off the ability to plan, which is going to bring consequences and withhold benefits. Okay, and it's a chatas to the avil because it goes against his whole way of viewing reality and himself and his place in reality, and it's an abomination to the lates because he stigmatized thinking and midos and planning so much. Ralbag's second idea is that there are deficiencies in the thoughts of the avil and in the lates. In the avil, because he doesn't have the patience to follow them through, to think them through clearly, and then the lates because he filters out anything that's not the juicy litzanos. And the point of that pasuk, what do we say the point of the pasuk is? Or did I say the opposite? Is it the same point?
The takeaway?
Yeah, the takeaway, yeah. I mean, definitely it works with the same point, right?
Said if the avil thinks he's going to be able to plan the future.
Oh yeah, right. So it's gonna get to the same point, is that he's gonna be turned off to this. And then we had and then the Metzudas idea, the only thing is don't think that speech and thought can't shape your character, because it can, but we don't know the particular ideas. Okay, good haul. Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey.
thanks. Alrighty.